Good morning, family. It's been a while since I produced any videos or anything like that because I've, you know, been going through some changes, right? Like, I have to think deeply, man, about everything that I do, right? And because, like, you know, I don't believe I have a whole lot of time left in the world. I have to be, like, authentic, right? And I can't, you know, be faking in the funk, right? Like, I'm looking at this book I'm reading here. It's called People of the Lie, right? And it's the hope for healing human evil and where it comes from. And like this dude, his name is M. Scott Peck. And I have a couple of his books, man. Like he's got a book over here, The Road Less Traveled and stuff like that, and that book there basically was dealing with love and the importance of love in our lives, right? Like, you know, that love is deep, man, and I like his work because his work also follows this guy. His name's Erich Fromm, who also deals with love and capitalism and how people who love material things over human beings are like lovers of death and they're not embracing life. You know what I'm saying? That this is a real deep dude, man, because Erich Fromm talks about like God and people who believe in God and then people who know God and walk with God, that there's two different things. You know what I'm saying? It's like, there's some people that are religious but are not feeling the presence of God in their life, right? They're not really walking with God, and it's pretty deep, man, because it's like there are people who know and there are people who think that they know because they're not feeling it. Anyhow, to deal with evil, right? The reason why I'm talking about I like this definitions of evil, right? Is because it's so deep, man. It says the willful failure of submission that characterizes malignant narcissism is depicted in both the stories of Satan and Cain and Abel. Satan refused to submit to God's judgment, and Christ was superior to him. For Christ to be preferred meant that Satan was not. Satan was less than Christ in God's eyes. For Satan to have accepted God's judgment, he would have had to accept his own imperfection. This he could not or would not do. It was unthinkable that he was imperfect. Consequently, submission was impossible and both the rebellion and fall inevitable. So also God's acceptance of Abel's sacrifice implied a criticism of Cain. Cain was less than Abel in God's eyes since he refused to acknowledge his imperfection. It was inevitable that Cain, like Satan, should take the law into his own hands and commit murder. In some similar, although usually more subtle fashion, all who are evil also take the law into their own hands to destroy life or liveliness in defense of their narcissistic self-image. All right? It says pride goes before the fall, right? It is said, and of course, laymen simply call pride what we have labeled with the fancy psychiatric term malignant narcissism, right? Being at the very root of evil. It is no accident that church authority has generally considered pride first among sins. By the sin of pride, they do not generally mean the sense of legitimate achievement one might enjoy after a job well done. Like, basically, it's distinguishing, like, people, if you acknowledge your own imperfection, that you as an individual are not perfect, right? And you understand that you have some flaws in your character and you're willing to submit to God, right? Like in the 12-step fellowships, right? We are working a program of recovering that relationship with the supreme being, man, that is the source of all power, right? That there is a lower power in the universe, man, that we all you know, do know, right? And should be aware of, right? Some people are in denial of it, right? And like those of us who acknowledge that we have, you know, flaws in our character, man, and that we need a power greater than ourselves in order to overcome those imperfections, right? You understand? We'll admit, you understand? We'll look at ourselves, we'll take a personal moral inventory, fourth step work, right? And then we'll go before God and another human being, and we will confess our sins, because they say confession is good for the soul, and that's what it is. All right, we're acknowledging our own limited capacity and our own limitations, right? And we go before God, man, in humility, and we ask God to remove our defects of character so that we can become more perfect and have a more perfect union with the Supreme Being, okay? And like the purpose of that acknowledgement is to, you know, be empowered, all right? And evil people are in denial of their imperfection, right? They lie, and first of all, it's like they're lying to themselves, all right? You know, in their arrogance, seeing themselves as not. I'm talking about the American government and white supremacy, straight up, right? And anybody else, man, that supports that, right? And it's not just, you know, like you know, the white supremacists, man, because you have, you know, people all over the world that suffer from that, right? Suffer from the disease of addiction, because the disease of addiction or evil, right? There's no like monopoly on that, right? You understand? You got black devils, Chinese devils, Indian devils, and white devils, okay? Like straight up like that, right? Like, you're not acknowledging God, and you're not acknowledging your own need. You understand what I'm saying? For a power greater than yourself to restore you to sanity. Like, you know, then you're off the mark, right? You're missing the mark, right? And that's what sin is, right? You know. Okay, here we go. Healthy self-confidence and realistic sense of self is the opposite of what I'm talking about. What is meant is rather a kind of pride that unrealistically denies our inherent sinfulness and imperfection, a kind of overweening pride or arrogance that prompts people to reject and even attack the judgment implied by the day-to-day evidence of their own inadequacy, despite its fruits, right? And Martin Buber was a theologian, so you know, he quotes Martin Buber, talks about him a lot. He says, in Buber's words, the malignantly narcissistic insist upon affirmation affirmation independent of all findings. All right, malignant narcissistic. The malignantly narcissistic insist upon affirmation independent of all findings. Like, what I'm thinking that means, right, is like, despite like the evidence that these people are wicked and evil, that they think that they're not, right? They're in denial of their own evil and wickedness, right? You know, and like they're everywhere in the world, man. Evil people are everywhere in the world that are people who are in denial of their own evil, their self-righteousness, like, yo, they all that in a bag of chips, that they can do no wrong, right? Like, the United States government, man, and starting the war in Iraq and destroying Iraq and destroying, you know, all those countries in the Middle East, man. It's like, straight up, the history of white supremacy is a history of lies. And when white people, you know, wave the flag and talk about, oh, you know, like, you know, talk about how they're going out here and they're fighting for their own, to protect and defend themselves, they're lying to themselves and everybody else, man. You understand? When you say you going to war to defend America and protect America, you're protecting corporate interest, and you know that. You're protecting the plutocrats, because America is a plutocracy. America's run by the rich. It's a government by the rich and for the rich. All right? And like in realistic terms, right, you got a few families that run things, like in America, Latin America, and places like that, Canada. You understand? And even in Europe, man. You know what I'm saying? Like like this Bilderberg group that gets together every year and they come together and they plot how they're gonna handle the globe, the business around the planet. That's real, man. People think that that's some conspiracy theory or nothing like that, man. Yo, like, we need to wake up and realize the magnitude of the evil that we're facing, that the evil empire, right? Like, like in the mythology and stuff like that of Star Wars, the evil empire is right here, and we're fighting the battle right here, man. Like, the force is real. If you think that the force is not real, man, like, then, you don't know what reality is. The force is real. Holy Spirit is real. You know what I'm saying? Satan is real. Like, you got Satan's representative running all over the planet, man. Whether you are, a thug in the hood, whether you're moving like drugs across the border, like, check this out, right? Like, I'm not gonna, blanket everybody, man, because I don't know your heart, man, because some people do what they do, but like, I'm just saying for me, right? Like my identification is somebody that loves murder and loves death and the visiting death on people, man, is ungodly. There's a difference between somebody who's righteously struggling in the cause of God. You understand? Because, yo, you can't just allow evil to just exist and to just do what evil does. All right? You have to take a stand at some point, man, and be like the Archangel Michael, man, and fight against Satan. You know what I'm saying? Because it's a real war. And it's a war, like when we talk about the war is, the war, it's a spiritual warfare and it's a mental warfare too. You know what I'm saying? Like real talk, we have to think about what is in the kingdom right here. All right, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God for the tearing down of strongholds, means that the ideas in our minds are very important. You understand? Not to be swayed and not to let somebody, tell you that the insanity and the evil that was practiced in Abu Ghraib over in, Afghanistan or Iraq or wherever the hell it is, right? Is not evil. That shit is evil. It's evil like the evil of locking people up in America under false pretenses for having marijuana or using drugs and stuff like that, right? Because, pretty much you brought the drugs into the country and then you locking people up for using them. That's insane, man. That's evil shit. You know what I'm saying? Real talk. And we have to look at it like that, right? I don't do drugs. I don't sell drugs. I don't have nothing to do with that because I know the negative impact on my community, right? When I admit my wrongs, right, and I change my way and the way I live, you understand? Like I'm not promoting none of that, man. I'm just saying if people are using drugs, they're free. They got a right to. You know what I'm saying? It's like I could try to point out the error of their ways and like, yo, man, that, there is some benefits in something like that, because even the Prophet Muhammad said that to his people. There's some benefit in drinking alcohol, but the harm is greater than the benefit. You understand? That's where I'm coming from. Like the harm, like real talk, right? You can get an insight, man, into the spirit using drugs. Real talk, man, because I did all of that, right? I got an insight into the infinite, through like mind-altering substances, right? But it's what you let in once you open those doors. Because you let things into yourself, right? And you become a channel or a conduit through which, the demonic can come through. Like, the heavenlies can come through too. The divine can manifest through you, right? But for an unstable individual or without, proper guidance, you could be opening a pathway and a doorway, for the demonic to manifest in your life. And you see that, in the world, in the business world, and in the world out in the street, all over, with greed and selfishness and a lack of empathy for other human beings and just, like I said, putting things before people. You know, I know that's a mouthful, man. I'm always, dropping a lot. And, I just like, try to stay surrendered, man, and ask God to guide me in all my affairs, right? Because, like, I'm not the one, man. I'm not, I'm not, like I already told you all, I'm not the turn your cheek kind of guy. You know, like I believe in, like the war is real. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not, nonviolent. I would be lying to you if, like, I surrender my will to God and I ask God to guide me. And God isn't saying to me to turn the other cheek. God isn't saying to me that killing is wrong. I'm not that guy. I'm not telling you that. All right? Because at the end of the day, right, this is the time of judgment. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just staying in position, to, allow my higher power, man, the supreme being, to use me. All right? Because for a long time, I was being used by a lower power. And when I, like, really started doing the work, I understand, man, that the work, I'm going to be doing this work until I leave here. You know what I'm saying? That I must remain constantly vigilant, man. All right? And, with that, I'm going to say thank you for letting me share.